Was there a moment in your life where it kind of dawned on you that this is what you wanted to do? This is music was your path?
I don't know if there was a specific single like epiphany kind of thing, but I just remember once I got going, I've never thought of turning back. I talk to people a lot. I've been in Nashville over 30 years, and maybe one or two others that I remember from when I first got here are still here for whatever reason. A lot of people, we call it the class of the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us aren't here anymore for whatever reason. I mean, and I mean in Nashville.
Yeah, it's a tough
And I
town. It
remember,
always has been.
I remember a friend of mine. I'll tell you a story. A writer named Catesby Jones. He was a co-writer on Travis Tritt's first big hit called Country Club,
Mm-hmm.
and that song was a big hit. And one day, a few years after that, I was at the Bluebird. I can't remember if I was working or just hanging out because I was still friends with the employees. And Catesby pulled up, and he would play. We knew him because he played the Bluebird, and he just came in. He said, "I came in to say goodbye." And I would say, and he explained that, he had a wife and kids. He wasn't getting his songs cut 5 years after having a big hit. He couldn't get songs cut. And he said, my kids are growing up. Nashville doesn't seem to want my songs. My kids are growing up away from their grandparents. We decided to move back to Virginia. And like, man, that hit me like a ton of bricks. How tough it must be when,
Yeah.
as hard as it is to leave your home to go come here to go seek out a dream wherever, the you know the day you realize, well, this shit's over and I'm gonna go, I'm giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that must be tough. That must be hard. And I've never, fortunately, I've been lucky. I just never had that. Never had that moment
Well, you know,
because there were
songwriting's
definitely
great.
some because there were definitely some lean years. Trust me.
Oh no, no, I know, and I say this all the time on the show. People are probably tired of me saying it, but like songwriting is one of the only things I feel. I'm not a writer. I'm not a musician. I sing a little bit, karaoke. I'm a karaoke star. Uh, but yeah, I feel like songwriting is one of those things that's it's just almost unfair in a way because once you have success with it, you can't replicate that success by doing the same thing again. You can't write the same song over and over
Right.
again. It doesn't
Right.
work that way. So, like
Like
you,
an artist isn't going to paint the same painting over and over again.
right, exactly. But at least with an
Yeah.
artist, they have techniques and things that they can use. They just paint something different, a different scene or whatever. With a
Uh-huh.
songwriter, it's a lot more difficult than that. It's sure you have a structure that you can learn and you have little tricks and things, but you can't write the same song over and over again and expect the
No,
same
but
success.
over the years, if you're a serious writer and you're trying to write every day and really, really, be a writer, over the time you do develop exercise like a muscle
Yeah.
that no matter what, you could always sit down and come up with something. It might not be the dance, but you
Hmm.
could always come up with something. And some days are just better than others. I mean, Steve Earle said the whole secret is showing up. I mean, you never know when the good lyric fairy is going to show up.
Hmm.
You got to be there when she
Yeah.
does. You
And you
know,
have to recognize it for what it is too, right? When it presents itself, I
yeah.
feel, and I imagine people, some people are more adept at that than others. But I love the fact that you have different stories. There's so many different stories of success when it comes to Nashville stories, right? Like people show up and then the first cut is this huge hit, and then you never hear from them again, or
Yeah.
people show up and it doesn't happen at all, and then because of their perseverance and their doggedness, eventually it does happen. And you're more in the second part of that. You showed up, you kind of paid your dues. It was 4 years before you got your first cut. So I imagine you go to Nashville, that's a huge leap. And then 4 years later, nothing's happened for you yet. What's happening in those 4 years for you to keep you there?
I like, because I was building up a almost a unit of a support unit
Yeah.
of people, my people,
Hmm.
co-writers and good friends, and we were all doing it. We all wanted to write that next hit, and we were all supportive of each other. We'd go and see each other play at writer shows. We were all writing together, and we all knew how hard it was. And there were, even though it took a while, like there were always little hopeful moments that would happen. Like the first time you had a song put on hold,
Yeah.
I mean, that happened, I don't know how long, maybe 2 years in. And I thought, oh my God, I'm here. I'm a songwriter,
Mhm.
and of course it didn't get recorded, but then, I mean, I still get excited about when I hear a song gets put on hold. So like little milestones were happening along the way. And I knew, I mean, I probably didn't articulate this much, but it just felt that like I was making progress.
Yeah. So are you more of an optimistic person, or during those
Yeah.
4 years, are you dealing with some mental health stuff, imposter syndrome or beating yourself up in any way?
I felt, I was in an interesting spot because I was working at the Bluebird, so I was exposed to a lot of music every
Exactly. Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
And I heard the best and I heard the worst. But for me, hearing the best always made me want to go home and write a song. So I was always inspired and not scared off by the good, by the stuff that moved me.
Right.
Um,
But a
I
lot of
knew I
people
wasn't
could see
good.
how good those people are and then be like, man, I don't know if I can, do that, get to that level.
Yeah, I
Uh,
didn't think of that. I thought, man, I want to do that, and I went
yeah.
home and tried. There were a lot of nights I couldn't wait to get out of there, so because I wanted to go home and write, or at least try to write. There was back then was kind of the beginning of the writers in the round thing with Don Schlitz, Fred Noblock, Tom Schuyler, and Paul Overstreet,
Wow.
and those guys were amazing, and they
Yeah.
were playing a lot, and they made me want to be good, and I realized I wasn't yet,
Yeah.
but I always assumed I was gonna be, I guess.
I love that. So
But
you're
you know what
more
I
you're
mean?
more of the challenge accepted guy instead of the, that scares the shit out of me guy.
I think that's more of like I just put my head down and go for it,
I
I
love
mean, because
that.
it's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I've always had people believing in me enough, a publisher that, so I was making enough money so I was able to pay my rent and eat and just write every day. I was always lucky enough to have somebody champion me, somebody who believed in enough in me to help me along. And right now I'm writing at a company called Smack, and the co-owner Robin Palmer. This is my third deal with Robin. We worked together at EMI like in the late '90s, in the mid '90s, and then we worked at a small company called Anchor Down. Anytime she was able to, she signed me, and then it just happened again last July. So I think it's a big part of it is finding your champions,
Yeah.
and like just having people who believe in you and support you. So I was really lucky in that way. So I never had to like I never had to come to that fork in the road where it said I'm going to have to either get a job or that, you know what I mean.
Hmm.
um, Even when not getting big cuts, I was still being supported enough and championed enough to keep going and not even think about stopping.